Hi, I'm Samantha Ledbetter, and I'm a clinician in UNG's Student Counseling Center on the Dahlonega campus. In this video, I will be providing some information on how to address anxious thoughts. Anxiety oftentimes will lead to spirals of negative thinking and feeling overwhelmed, stuck, and out of control. In life, some things we can't control, no matter how much we may try to force it or try to come up with ways to ensure that things turn out like we planned. Despite being aware of this, anxiety still has us fixating on things that we can't change, or freezing and not taking action where we can to influence change. This brings me to this video's purpose, to share with you how you can practice serenity and courage to lessen anxiety's hold on you. The way I do this with my clients and with myself is by using the Serenity Prayer. Now, this is not religious, despite its title. Instead, it's more spiritual in nature, in that it acknowledges that there is a force bigger than you or me at play, whether that's a God in the traditional religious sense, or it's nature, science, the universe, maybe ancestry. So, like someone in your ancestry that is a guiding force for you, etc. So, here's the Serenity Prayer or declaration, however you feel most comfortable referring to it. You can start the declaration with the word grant, or you can start with serenity. I've seen it multiple ways. I've also included higher power / because I've seen it written that way too. If you prefer to not use the word God, you can use the verbiage higher power. The importance of this is in its concepts. It's been used in addiction counseling, but I found it to be highly effective with my anxious clients due to anxiety's relationship with the unknown and being out of control, helpless, and hopeless. So the first portion we want to focus on is God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So the definition of serenity is the state of being calm, peaceful, and untroubled. Recall earlier about how we can get anxious worrying about things out of our control. This isn't productive, and it tends to keep us from focusing on action that we can take to alleviate the anxiety. Thus, not learning to accept things that we have no control over negatively affects our mental health. The next portion is courage to change the things that I can. And the definition of courage is the ability to do something that frightens one. So sometimes our anxiety is about things that we have some control over or we can influence in some way. We may be able to engage in activities to prepare us for success, or we can communicate to get clarification or support, or we can intervene to improve our circumstances rather than being frozen in a negative and unhelpful mindset. This involves having the courage to act when your anxiety may try to convince you that it's too hard, or why bother. The final portion here is wisdom to know the difference. So the definition of wisdom is the soundness of an action or decision with regard to application of experience, knowledge, and good judgment. You may have the tendency to struggle with primarily serenity or courage, although we all do experience both to various degrees. However, another aspect is knowing how to determine whether you have control over something or not, so you know whether to engage in serenity or courage. And that's where wisdom comes to play. So I'll go over a few examples with you so you can see how this looks in practice. Example 1 is about grading. Maybe your professor doesn't have a clear grading system or doesn't upload grades throughout the semester. Therefore, you have no idea how you're doing in the class or what you could be doing to improve. So something that you could do in the courage section is ask your professor for clarifications about the grading system. Approach them after class, go to office hours, by email, etc. However, you can't force the professor to explain their grading system well, nor can you make them upload grades. Maybe they're just not a good communicator. You're just not getting what you need from them when you ask those questions. You can't magically improve their communication skills or force them to be interested in working on this about themselves. So, just not helpful to focus on. So when things fall into the serenity category, you will want to acknowledge that it's out of your control. It sucks, but you can't control it. So then you can redirect yourself to those things that can be done, which would be in the courage category. Some other things that would fall into the courage category would be focusing on the value of learning versus needing to get a certain grade. If you are truly trying to learn, grades tend to reflect that anyway. So it's not like you're going to get a worse grade because you want to learn. Some ways to put energy into this would be getting tutoring, going to office hours, seeking supplemental instruction services, forming study groups with your peers, things like that. You can also continue to seek feedback on your understanding of the material. So instead of going and asking your question like your professor, how did I do on this exam or this homework assignment? Saying, hey, I wasn't so sure that I did this correctly. Do you mind going over it with me? Or, I think I understand this well. Can you clarify some things, or let me know if I'm in the wrong track? Things like that. After the class is over, this won't help you in the moment unless you kind of are looking forward to that vent of frustration. But you can document your experiences and the end of class eval. Maybe you could potentially help the next person. So example 2 is about test anxiety that can impact you leading up to the test or during the test. So courage, obviously, you can take some control by academically preparing for this test, by studying, using supports like office hours, tutoring, supplemental instruction, maybe getting a study group together with your peers. However, no matter how much you prepare, you cannot know everything. That can be about the test material, the test format. You may study your heart out, but that doesn't mean the question is not going to be asked away that you understand it well. Courage, you can tend to your body, so self-care. You can eat, sleep consistently on a routine, appropriate amounts, not too much or too little. You can also create a plan for the test day that involves a balance between the academic preparations and the self-care. Other things you cannot know, testing conditions. So maybe there's going to be someone tapping throughout the test that's so annoying, or someone's going to be coughing a lot or clearing their throat, which can be bothersome to you. You may have an idea of the number of people or in the room, but maybe that's not something you know. Maybe you take your test in a different room than you have your class, so you're spaced out more. Maybe you're crammed together. Maybe it's hot, maybe it's cold in the room. So, you can prepare for that in creating a plan for test day. Maybe it's, preparing to wear a tank top and a sweater so that if it's hot, you can take the sweater off. Or if it's cold, you can put the sweater on. You also can't make others stop looking at you, although it's probable that they're not, and this is your anxiety messing with you. I can imagine a proctor might be looking at you, or maybe you're the one tapping your pencil annoyingly. So someone's looking at you because of that. But in general, this is probably just anxiety playing with you, and it's not based in reality. You can also create a plan for the test itself. So if those symptoms come up of like sweating, heart racing, breathing hard, tunnel vision, can't focus, trying to rush through because you just don't think you're going to do well anyway, all that stuff. If you start noticing those symptoms come up, you can pause to take deep breaths and recenter yourself before you continue on with the next question. And that's just to make sure that you're letting your mind lead the show versus your anxiety. You can also come back to questions later. So you can skip and come back for most exams at least. So just like in the last example, you can acknowledge that things that fall in the Serenity category suck and they're impacting you negatively, but that's not helpful in terms of it's keeping you from moving to the courage section. So that's when you redirect yourself to those can-dos that are listed in the courage section. You can also pursue accommodations through student accessibility services as applicable. So if you have a qualifying diagnosis, you can go through that process and maybe have accommodations like a quiet test environment or a longer test time, things like that. Example 3 is about relationship problems. So let's say you and your friends see your significant other flirting with someone else. To start off, you cannot make your significant other be less interested in someone else. Like you cannot be the sole person that they've ever looked at. So that's not something that you can change. However, you can confront your significant other and have a discussion where you share your expectations and you set boundaries on what you believe is important or what is appropriate or inappropriate behavior when it comes to y'all's relationship. However, you can't make them choose to respect those boundaries and agree with those expectations. It can be blatant disrespect or it can be a disagreement, and that leads us to, if they won't respect those or they disagree, you can work to come to an agreed upon set of boundaries and expectations. So compromise, and maybe, hopefully, you can feel comfortable with those compromises. However, if those compromises are conflicting with your value system, you cannot be someone you're not and still have a healthy relationship with yourself and with them. So you can, of course, pretend. Like, I'm not saying you're not capable of pretending, but I'm saying even if you do that, you won't get the outcome you want because the relationship won't be what you want it to be. So, yeah, you can do it. Is it going to serve you well? No. So that's why I put it in the Serenity section, because you cannot make yourself be somebody you're not. Also, yelling, screaming, manipulating, being abusive towards your significant other cannot have a positive effect on your relationship, even if you end up getting what you want, and that significant other succumbs um, and decides to just pretend for you. That's the flip of the one before this. So, like the first one, you were unhappy, but you were pretending to keep the relationship. This one, your significant other is bending to your whim and pretending, but that's going to leave them unhappy. And again, the outcome is not going to be the kind of relationship that you're interested in. People like to forget this one, but it's important not to. You can choose to end the relationship and seek a partner who will be respectful towards you and or views your relationship in the same way. So even if your current partner is very respectful and you just cannot come to a compromise that doesn't um, agree with both of your value systems, that doesn't mean that either one of you is, wrong. It just means that maybe you're not meant to be together, because you cannot have a relationship where you agree on what that relationship looks like. So maybe it's ending it for that reason and pursuing a relationship where you do view relationships the same way and you have those same value systems. So those are all the examples I have today. I hope you found this information helpful. And if you have any questions or concerns, please email me. My email address is on the Student Counseling Center